to have you here. All right, so if you're new here, or you've been here a million times, like a few of you have, not a million. These talks or these conversations are have been inspired by all of the transitions that I am going through, that this character is going through, and that is something that is um, in my work. I always feel like I have to be completely honest with myself first, and then I have to be honest with people close to me, and then I have to be honest with my students. So this whatever's happening with me, which feels like this on the verge of something, something, whatever it happens to be. But these conversations are really about these ahas, these realizations, these concepts, these principles that are coming to this character. And when I say this character, one thing that's really happening, really a lot, of course, lately, is that the self of the character of Max is really just going away, and it's really been going away in the last couple of days a lot. And so, um, this is called the continual search. So when this all started happening to me, I really realized that this is not really learning a new concept. What was happening and is happening for this character is that the concepts are all being proved meaningless. They're all being proved like keeping. There's no good or bad for sure, but there seems to be, like I always say this, of course, that Lily Talman line is: it doesn't matter if you win the rat race because you're still the rat. And within that one little statement is a huge truth, because the identification with the rat is the problem. It doesn't matter if you win, it doesn't matter if you get it, it doesn't matter if you're like, oh, I am on top of the world, I am in, but because you're still it's the rat that's doing it, if that makes sense. And so this is kind of just a glimpse, because this is all very conceptless. It's very hard to explain what's happening, but it is all about how um, the self, the separated self, we are addicted to it. When we're addicted to the separated self, that I have to get here, I've got to do that, and that has to happen, or it doesn't have to happen. And I definitely don't want that to happen, but I only want this to happen. And all of that comes back to this incredible, incredibly unconscious addiction to the self, right? So that's what these conversations are about, because there's a continual search going on, right? So there's a sense that in this process, when this is happening for me, for this character, there's a sense that of great boredom. There's a sense of great boredom on some level, from the self concept, not from what I'm experiencing, but from the self. There's a sense of like, well, if I don't have to do anything and I don't have to be anything, well, then what the fuck is the problem here? What do I have to? And then this is exactly what happens. Is the next question is, well, what do I have to do to get there? What do I have to do to get rid of the self? There's no doing to get rid of the self. It doesn't happen like that, because it's only the self trying to get rid of the self. It's only the self trying to control the situation. It's only the self trying to make sure that it is protected. I did a live stream on Insight Timer just a little while ago about I need do nothing, but it was all about how the ego mind is the same as the separated self. The egoic mind is constantly going, okay, I've got to protect the body. I have to make sure that the body feels really good. I have to make sure that it doesn't die. I have to make sure that it doesn't do something that's going to get it into a situation, whatever it happens to be. There's this incredibly myopic sense that the body has to be taken care of, because the separated self connects itself with the body, right? But in this communication, in this, what we're talking about here, is that there is no body anyway. There's only energy. There's only stuff happening. And that doesn't mean it's all positive, because the separated self keeps wanting only positive, only positive, only positive. I only want love. I only want peace. I only want joy. I only want. Now, that is a byproduct of all of this stuff. I will tell you, I am so incredibly peaceful. I'm so much more light and joyful and everything since all of this has really started dawning on me, and it's all been happening in the last few months, right? So that happens. But, and I would say, and also incredibly great chaos is happening, great confusion, and great fear, and great love, and great. It's difficult to articulate this, but it really isn't the character of Max experiencing it anymore. It's just that that's literally, and some of you that have been here before, I will say this a million times, that's just appears to be happening. Well, I guess I'm confused right now. I guess there's confusion happening. I guess there's frustration happening. But it is not connected to a story that Max needs to blah 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 blah. That's really gone away. There are some things that are still like, "Ugh," but in general, there's no story connected at all to it. So it's really this kind of, I mean, I can only speak of in words because this is the communication that we are able to talk with. Um, it is this incredible full embrace of whatever is. And it's very hard to have this full embrace of the chaos, of the confusion, of the joy, when there's a character that's trying to deal with it all. Everything, as far as I know, in all my reading, not all my reading, most of my reading, most of my studying, has all come from this premise and this paradigm that we need to change. That the character of Jane, of Bob, of Max, there's something wrong. So we need to make sure that that changes in order for you to finally get it, or get successful, or get happy, or get peaceful. That's not what we're talking about here at all. We're talking about something completely different, because that is what I said before, that and it doesn't matter if you win the rat race of peace, you're still a rat. Doesn't matter if you win the rat race of success, you're still a rat. It's this incredible obsession with the self. So that's what we're here to talk about today. Everything is open. You can say anything, you can talk about anything, or ask any questions about what my process is. And if and we're just here to, if a question comes out of this, because there's really nothing happening here actually. If a question comes, then a question comes. And if an observation comes that you would like to, unmute yourself and share with us or whatever, then that's what this continual search camp is about. Oh, let's see chat. Oh no, sorry.
I can ask a question.
Yeah, Vince, great. Good to hear you.
So just because I've been thinking about this lately, people who are not really thinking about anything spiritual, or non-duality or anything like that, just I guess caught up in the rat race or whatever, just living a normal human life, right? What would be the difference how do I word this? So if we want to extend to them this ideology or whatever that we're discussing here, first of all, would we even bother if they're not inquiring about it?
Mm-hmm.
And also like, if we were to anyway, what would be the difference between the language we would use for them versus people who are very adept in this, like,
Yeah.
because like we get it all, like we get what you're saying on some level because we're so versed in what is going on here.
Because your character has done reading and done studying around kind of this, and you've watched videos or read books, right?
Yes.
So is your question, what do we do with people that aren't like that?
Well, it's hard for me to ask this question because it's escaping me. This seems to be happening to me a lot. Like, my questions are escaping me before I even get to utter them out.
Mm-hmm.
You noticed that before with me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I notice it every time it happens to me as well, clearly.
Yeah.
So
very, very common.
Yeah, and it almost doesn't even matter, the answer. I kind of just...
Yeah, it doesn't matter because there's no one there to try to explain to. There's no Vince there.
Right.
There's no Mitzi. There's no Max. There's no one there because the separated self is going to take the role of, I will teach you this. I will show you this. That's not what's happening in the truth. Really, in the truth, there's just what's happening. Yeah. Right? Because if I kind of understood your question or inquiry, is like, well, how do I talk about this stuff to people that haven't been doing it? Well, there's no one there anyway, so.
But you can say that to us because we get what you're saying, but to
right,
someone
so let me just say this, and then I'm not right or wrong, it doesn't matter. But your separated self is trying to find a way. So that's fine. That's all. It's fine. Doesn't matter. But just notice that that's not what we're talking about, because that would be in the realm of hierarchical teaching. I'm unlearned, now I'm learned. There's no there that's duality. Because then it implies that you are somewhere and you need to be somewhere else. That's not what I'm talking about at all.
Okay.
But I understand why you're saying that. Go ahead.
Yeah, my question didn't come out the way it was intended, so it's not really
okay.
But thank you.
Well, take a moment. But if my answer or what I said helps to clarify what you want to say, maybe I didn't hear it right.
I guess it does. I guess your answer doesn't satisfy the ego, right?
Oh, no. So no, there's no satisfying the ego.
Yeah. So, God, I hate doing this. I hate I hate losing the question. But at the same time, it's like, whatever.
Yeah. Okay. What we're speaking of here, Vince and everyone else, is not understandable. Because the only thing that can understand is the separate self. So it gets frustrating, for sure. There's no doubt about it. It can get really frustrating. Like, what?
So I guess here is another part B to the question based off what you just said. So
sure.
Something that is fundamentally not understandable to the separate self.
Yeah.
How can one talk about it? Like, for instance,
the best that you can. It's very
That's the trick. That's the difficult part.
But
Vince,
hold on, Casey, one moment.
Yep,
I hear you.
Yep.
Vince, do you mean how can one talk about it to others?
Well, yeah, like, since you can't get it either, how are you talking about this to us right now as if you get it? Because you don't get it either, obviously, right?
No, my character doesn't get it. Something's happening, though. But something's happening. I'm just kind of sharing. I'm sharing an energetic thing going on here. But I will say this. Let me say this really quickly, because this is new-ish to me. It's like trying to explain this kind of to my family and to my friends. But I'm like, why do you have to explain it? It doesn't matter anyway. It doesn't matter anyway. Who cares? So, but at the same time, because my separated self could say, oh, you should explain to your family and your friends what's going on with you. But then I'm like, that's just the separated self trying to substantiate itself all over again. And I'm like, no, that doesn't feel right either. So in these gatherings, all I'm doing is, my impetus was like, I guess I'm going to share what the process is, what's going on with me, and see if other people can even relate. Because at a very, very clear level, I feel like many separated selves can totally relate to what I'm saying, but they don't really go for what I'm saying anyway. They don't. But they get what I'm talking about. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess, there's the aspect of service to others on some level in how the Course would say to extend, right?
That's a story.
Okay, so that's a story. So
story.
Obviously at some point, if we're talking about A Course in Miracles, we're going to throw the book out. Like, obviously, that's
of
part
course.
Of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because the book is,
and we're not talking about A Course in Miracles tonight.
no, but that's the kind of backdrop behind a lot of
it. Right.
So, like, I'm gonna just stop.
Okay, you stop.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Vince. Casey, I'm sorry to cut you off. I just wanted to make sure. So, Casey, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, and that's totally fine. I have no problem with that. That was fine. Okay. It would be like if you were to write a book about, like if I was going to write a book about this experience, it would be like be and do nothing, and that would be the end of the book. So you know what I mean? It would be like, oh yeah, tell me more. Tell me there's nothing else to tell. It's like, and then how do you talk about it? It's like explaining a color to somebody who's colorblind. They haven't seen the color. You know what I mean? So it's hard.
That's a really great analogy. Mm-hmm. Keep going.
It's yeah, that's fine. So it's even if they have seen the color and you've seen the color, it's hard to talk about something that's not based in quote unquote reality.
Yeah.
How can you express something that's, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Because it's only a color within the story of the separated self, and then there's 500 billion separated selves. So it's like you can't talk about what pink is, because pink for me is a very different thing than pink for you, and then and you can't explain that to me. You can't.
Right.
And that's why this is such a energetic vibrational resonance or not. You either like, and I know, Casey, you resonate with it. So, but and it doesn't matter. Not everyone's going to resonate with it. It doesn't matter. But it's a resonation. It's not an understanding or a getting it, even though my character still has to use some of those words like, do you get it? But I understand, I'm not interested in if you get it or not. And that's where it puts me as a quote unquote teacher for many years. So much of my teaching was is, who knows, about helping the students to get it. Now it doesn't fucking matter if they get it. Okay.
Yeah, that's a
Because
conundrum.
it's just the character getting another concept that's going to layer another thing on top of their thing. Who cares?
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I cut you off, Casey. Sorry.
And that's fine. That's fine. It's all good.
Yeah.
It's all good. I had so there's times where I'm that I guess the way I would language it is there's no Casey there, there's just
Mhm.
this a beingness or being one or whatever, however you want to language it. And it's like euphoric. It's like I'm so happy over nothing that I could just cry. You know what I mean? It's just
Yeah.
like, wow.
It can be really emotional.
Yeah. And and then there's other times where it's at least for me spooky in a way. I don't fully, I know as Casey the character, I have a body and it's subservient to me. If I want to push somebody out of the street and get run over by a bus, I'm not going to get into an argument with my body. It's just going to do what I say. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? But in this new spot, sometimes it's like, is my body having a reaction? Is it a genetic reaction? Because
Hmm.
sometimes I feel very emotional, but there's no story. You know what I mean? So it's
Right.
like, what's going on in my space? You know what I mean? So
Well, I think that that's really great. I love that you said that because I think that I mean my experience with what I've gone through and then what I've seen with people, not exactly what we're talking about, is that the body is a
mhm.
receptor of energy, right, Casey? So
Yep,
the
yep,
body is a receptor of energy. So when you go through something, this is asking your whole psychic world to be completely changed. So the body is going to shift and it's going to change and it's going to go like, I don't want that. Or like what's happened for me many times is I've had that feeling of fear and dread. There's no doubt about it. That this character in my body is gone like, oh God, oh. But then a lot of the times the body goes, it feels like it expands and it's huge, like, oh my God. Right. And so I think that we are all kind of individuals kind of perceiving what's happening with this situation. So,
hmm
it's going to be a very different situation for Casey than it is for Paulette, than it's going to be for Vince, than it's going to be for Max. Because our quote unquote reality makeup, even though the body isn't real, it's real within the dream state. So, I think that it's completely normal to have kind of hardcore body situations because it's a whole different. As I used to teach a long time ago, is that I was really into energy shifting and all of that stuff. Well, the body reacts to energy, and so
right.
if it's kind of like, this is a good example. Well, maybe it's not good, but I think it's good. But if your body has been running on a 9-volt battery for all the years you've been alive, and then suddenly there's an operational system shift, and it has to have two big, huge D batteries. Remember those things? Why do we ever use
Yeah,
those?
yeah, I do.
Big D batteries. So then all
Yeah.
of a sudden it's been on a 9-volt, and now all of a sudden it's got to be on two D batteries. The system, which is you, is going to go through it like an alteration of, whoa, I have to adjust to this. I have to adjust to this
Yep.
thing. And I
That
feel
makes
like for
that
me
makes sense.
that I've, because more and more as this is happening moment by moment, day by day, I'm having to be like, whoa, okay. And it's with thoughts, it's with feelings, it's with my perception or no perception. It's all shifting. So I think that the body, when and the body feels emotions, and that's okay. No matter. It could be scary. It could be, you know, the kind of like, wow, I'm crying for no reason. You know what's happened to me, and then I'll get back to you. I've noticed that this has really been happening for a few years, but I really have noticed that um, the things that have been pulling me, if you're like, whoa, I want to read that book or I want to watch that movie or whatever, you know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Those have changed for me. Not all, but all of a sudden I'm like, whoa, I'm really into sport. There's a sport I love, AFL football, and I'm obsessed with it now. And all of a sudden really into the science fiction Marvel world. And I'm like, I never would have been in that. So something is definitely changing because something's pulling me in a different direction. And so I think that's a long answer to say, you know what? This is your uh it's your receptor and or your generator of energy. And so when it shifts with what we're talking about, it's going to obviously change. Now,
Sure. That makes sense. I while you were talking, I remembered that time where I was walking home through the woods late at night,
oh yeah,
and I just right. So I just felt like a little kid. You know what I mean? I was like, oh, there's this or that. So one of the things that happened was, now Casey the cat. I've had somebody literally hit me in the face with a brick, and then I've gotten into a fist fight with 3 people bigger than me. You know what I mean? So I'm not like a sissy or anything, but somebody offended me, and it really hurt my feelings. I mean, it hurt like a little kid. Like, you shouldn't be talking to me that way.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it was a bizarre feeling because I haven't felt that way, that vulnerable, since I was a child. You know what I mean? So it's just like there's this new isness. However it's language, but it's just new and different, and at the same time exciting. It's not the humdrum of life. It's something different.
Well, that makes sense because the more that the character self, the separated self, is let go of, because the separated self is all based on I have to be good, or I have to not do these things. I can only do these things. You cannot be angry, and you can't be violent, because that's something you're not allowed to do, which all of us grow up with, whatever. But when this starts happening, you get surprising chaos. Like, whoa, oh my God, I was fucking angry and I wanted to kill that person. Of course, we are not, promoting
advocating
violence, advocating killing everyone. But
Yeah.
once the self starts to go away, the truth starts to come up. If you're mad, you're mad. But there's no story along with it. I don't know. But let me ask you that. So when this came up with you, that was such an intense feeling.
Yeah.
Was it connected to the story of Casey?
No, and that's the thing that was probably the most troubling to me, because if it was connected to Casey, then I'd understand it. It would make sense. It would be logical, and that was the thing, that it was the carpet out from under my feet. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah. It was just like somebody had said something and acted a certain way. It was just offended. I was offended by it. Not offended like, how dare you say that to me, but hurt. I was like really hurt. And it was just, there was no logical reason for it. That's just the way I felt at the time. I mean, I still had to be in the space and talk with the person and interact with them, and I did it, professionally, however you want to say, and I was fine with it. But it was just something that I noticed that came up. You know what I mean? So I just like, okay, that's interesting. Yep.
So phenomena, that's the word I really love. One of my teachers, Adyashanti, forever, he used that word phenomena, which I really love. Phenomena is a way of looking at everything that happens as it's just happening. So there was anger. That's phenomena that's happening. There's sadness, phenomena that's happening. There's, I need to eat a sandwich, otherwise I'm going to pass out. That's phenomena that's happening, right? So it's
Yeah.
just what's happening. So, but the character of Casey might doesn't sound like it, even in the in the past, start to analyze it. What was that about? How was that? Da, 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 da. No, that's just the phenomena that was happening. That's
Mm-hmm.
all.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. It comes back to this, how the self loves to give meaning to everything on some level. And then when you have an experience like you're like, I'm not giving anything meaning to it. How weird.
Well, it was kind of like I couldn't give meaning to it. There was no meaning there, It was just like it was just a feeling I felt.
There was
and
just frustration or anger that appeared to happen.
Well, it wasn't anger so much. Like I said,
I don't know what it was. Sorry.
Yeah, it was. I just felt hurt.
Hurt.
I just felt hurt. Like,
So
yeah.
Hurt happened.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the other thing that was strange. There was no association to anything other than what was happening in present time. So I couldn't say, "Oh, that guy's an asshole," just like my ex-mother-in-law, or I couldn't say, "Oh, this happened because of that," or there was just none of that there. Nothing. I just felt hurt and vulnerable, and that I was fine with that. I proceeded throughout the day like a day, and that was that. But it was just odd to me. It was just one of those things. It was phenomenal.
It's odd to the separated self, because the separated self wants to, like, it needs to have a story attached to it somehow, and there wasn't a story attached to it.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's huge. That's huge.
Yeah.
Because it naturally just happens, and then what the separated self will do, be like, well, I have to do that every time now. No, that is not replaceable. You can't reproduce that. You know what I mean? It's just it's just energy that's going on. That's all. So that's what happens.
Yeah. Phenomenal, like you said. Thanks for letting me share it with you.
Sure. And I would say this is that, everything is really, it's what's happening in this moment. The video I put out earlier today is there is only this. There is only this. There's only this going on. I'm angry. I'm happy. I am hungry. Or it's not even me. It's like there's hunger going on. I mean, I really am seeing this more and more in my life. I'm like, oh, there's depression, but it's not me that's depressed. Oh, there's hunger, but it's not me that's hungry. Oh, there's whatever. It's just all of these things just happening, but it doesn't get caught up in that web of all of that stuff anymore. And that leaves the self like with nothing to do, because the self is obsessed with making sure that it gets somewhere and controls things and makes sure that it's enlightened or it's peaceful or it gets revenge or whatever happens to be. No. It just is. I guess that's what's happening right now. Anger is happening. Okay.
Yep. I used to know somebody that their way of coping with things was to be too busy. They'd have to be, they couldn't just sit there and be there. Like, let's sit in front of each other and just look at each other. They couldn't do that. They had to be busy doing something. That was like,
they had to fill everything up.
Yeah. So it was, and that's, that's the way they coped with things. And this is like quite the opposite.
Oh, totally. I want to say something because it came up, and then see if anyone else has anything to say. But it just reminded me of, this communication or this thing that we're talking about is not about denial, because it can sound like that when I keep going, well, okay, that's what's happening. It's actually the most incredible acceptance, right? So a lot of people go, okay, I guess they're going to be an asshole. Blah, 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 blah. No, it's kind of like acceptance and denial at the same time. And you're like, I don't want them to be an asshole. No, assholeness is happening. Okay. I don't judge it. I don't push it away. I don't support it. it's just an experience that's going on, right? So sometimes I feel like, even if, because I don't consider what we're talking about here to be quote unquote spiritual, even in the real spiritual, healthy spiritual paths, there's always this element there, not always, but there's this element of like, oh, okay, I've made it, and now I'm better, and they haven't gotten there yet. No, it's just what's happening. There's an assholeness happening with the guy at the fucking whatever, and there's assholeness happening, but they don't need to not be an asshole. That's what they're doing. That's who they are. But the when I get back to the kind of like the spiritual thing, is like, whoa, I need to accept them. Everything's good. They're only love. Everything's fine. There's nothing wrong with what I'm talking about. But from the big picture, it's kind of like it doesn't matter how you deal with them. It doesn't really matter because it's still you trying to be like, I'm going to love them even though they're an asshole. I will love them even though they're an asshole. I will love them. I swear to God. I'm going to love them even though they're an asshole. It's insane because all it's doing is concretizing the separated self over and over and over.
Yeah, but it's also changed my viewpoint of spirituality, because if you figure, I'm a spirit, you're a spirit, he's a spirit,
Mm-hmm.
and then some people, which is individuality, just on instead of a physical plane, it's a spiritual plane,
Exactly. I was listening to someone today talking about, so it's like you go from, okay, I can't deal with the God word, which is fine. I'm not going to deal with the God word. So I'm going to say it's universe. And then instead of saying it's universe, I don't like that. So I'm going to say it's higher self. And then I'm saying, no, it's the id. No, it's all the same thing. It's still making a separation between the truth and what you see as something either controlling you or giving you life. No. So this message is really, I'm telling you, I've had a lot of people drop off of my email list, and I know, because I know quite a few people have been with me for like 20 years, and I know that they're like, oh no, I can't do that. I know.
Wow.
And one of the big things I think is that it's like, it's not nihilism the way Nietzsche talked about nihilism and stuff, but he wasn't really a nihilist. But
what's nihilism? What's nihilism? I'm not
nihilism, but there is nothing. There is nothing. Oh. Nothing means anything, and there is nothing. Right?
All right.
So look it up in case you'd be interested. You should look that up. But this isn't nihilism, because nihilism states that there is nothing at all. But this, what we're talking about, states that nothing really is everything. So as soon as you let go of if you become completely nothing, you will have everything. That's been pointed to in many spiritual paths for many years. So a lot of people are not like on board with me going, I don't do the God thing. And I never really have. I've always predicated it because the God thing is a story. Very rarely is it like, and not very rarely, but yeah, I'd say very rarely is it really a personal experience, but it's still a personal experience with the separated self. Oh, I have
right.
What happens a lot of times in that you're taught in, especially Christian-ish kind of religions, doesn't matter, dogma. You have to develop your relationship with God.
You're separated right there.
It's so funny to me. It's like, why would you do that? It's so stupid. It's like, oh, I have to play this game, and I have to do Monopoly, then I have to do Twister, then I have to do Sorry, then I have to read all of the Upanishads, and I have to do all this stuff to get exactly where you already fucking are. It's so stupid to me. But that's just like, because this is the realization that's like, oh, there is nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. You don't have to do anything. It's all the story of the separated self trying to get to be something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was you in one of your past videos was talking about, I forgot how you languaged it, but it was really spot on. It was like there's the absolute and then there's something that's
the relative.
within the relative. Yes. Yes. I thought that was that made 100% sense, you know.
That was a big one for me. Yeah, to really get how to explain that. Yeah, that's a big one. There's the absolute. Yeah. There is what is. Some people call that God, right? There is what is. Yep. And within all that is a little relative thing that you're going, oh, that absolute's called God. Or whatever. It's a story within the big truth of it all. And it's not even that big because it's right here. It's closer than your own breath, as the Course in Miracles would say. It's already here.
Sure.
It's like I will say it again because I love the analogy of Dorothy and the ruby slippers.
Oh, that's perfect. Yeah. Yeah.
This is it. It's like run around, get your hair done, try to find the wizard, try to help them to get the brain, and then finally at the end, she's like, oh God. And then, all Linda says was, my dear, all you had to do is look down. You've had the power all along.
Yeah. Yep. Epic.
That is such the perfect lesson. I've been teaching that for many years. But when you start to really get it on some level and you start to be like, there is no Dorothy. There's just the slippers. That sounds so gay. There's only ruby slippers. But it's true. I mean, that analogy works. Ultimately, it's like, wait a second. I have been running around trying to be better, trying to learn more, trying to meditate more, eating. Nothing wrong with any of it. Because the next thing I was going to say is eating vegan. There's nothing wrong with any of that. But what you do up here, it doesn't matter because you already got the fucking shoes on your feet. Because you're trying to get somewhere, to get better, to heal yourself. That whole healing yourself industry, boy, separate self loves it. It loves it. You better get better. You better get better. Because there is something wrong.
Yeah, wrong with you. There's something wrong. Not just wrong, but wrong with you.
Of course.
The separated self talking to himself,
Yes.
There's something wrong with me.
Yeah. Not just one thing. There's a list. And everyone here that identifies with the separated self, you're like, I know my list. And my list is, I'm not skinny enough. I'm not smart enough. I should have asked that guy on the date when I was 16. Now he's all successful and happy, and I blew that chance. And da 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 blah 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 blah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Separate self loves to suffer. Like, give me the razor blade and let me just cut. Okay. Cut. There's a line in none of you probably know this because you're not theater people. Maybe you are. There's a show called A Little Night Music, and there's a song that's called Every Day a Little Death. Every day
a little what?
Death. DEATH.
Oh,
Every day a little death. And it's a beautiful song, and you get it. You're like, in the parlor, in the bed. And it's all about every day you just kind of go, no, I'm not going to do that. And I can't do that. Something's wrong with me here. And then this is what most separated selves live. Every day it's a little death.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard a story about a person who on their deathbed realized that they were actually alive, that they could have done something. I was alive. I could have done this and that. But you know what I mean? It's like, yes, every second of every day, but
Yeah. But at the
you
same
just
time, that's what happens. There was regret. Regret happened. Then death happened. Okay.
right, right. That's another interesting thing for me is just like you said, the relative within the absolute is just just having admiration for the way that life manifests. So you
Yeah.
have a happy puppy dog, or
Yeah.
just even the things that aren't the most pleasant in the world. There's like
Yeah.
I can have an admiration for it that's very deep that
Oh,
wasn't there before, and
it's
it's like.
so true. Oh my God. That is so true. And then I'm going to open it up to other people that want to say something, but I want to tell you this really quickly, is that yesterday I was walking down Fifth Avenue. I went to the store and I was walking down Fifth Avenue. And as I was walking down, I was going to cross the street, but I saw cars coming and I was like, let me just wait. And I saw a guy in a scooter coming this way. And then I saw a big van, and this was Park or Fifth or whatever. It was Third Avenue, and it went north. So this guy in the van turned right in front of the scooter. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, and I couldn't see it happening, but I heard other people go, oh my God. So this guy totally cut off this little guy in a scooter and he slammed right into it. Bam. And it was like, and then the van kind of pulled over. The guy was like freaking on the floor, and then he got up and started screaming. But my point being is, if I thought to myself, what? I didn't think of myself. It was a reflection. Actually, I was like, in the past, I would have been like, oh my God, oh my God. And I was like, oh, okay, I got to my skin. But it
Scooters
wasn't
happen.
cold. I wasn't cold, and I wasn't disconnected. I saw it for what it was happening. But there was no story about, oh my God, that was not there at all. And it
Right.
sounds like I'm being cold, but it's actually not cold at all.
Well,
So,
that's like the story of watching my son fall down a flight of stairs.
yes, what you
It's
said. That's
right.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to
Well,
open it up so it's not just you and me just talking.
yeah. I'm gonna
I
mute
love talking
myself.
to you, Casey, but sure. I
That's
want to
fine.
open it up so everybody can say
Yep.
anything or this
I'm muting myself.
conversation. Sure, Casey, thank you. This conversation might have brought up something for Mitzi or Paulette or Vince. And you don't have to say anything. I just want to open it up so you have an opportunity if you would like to be like, what? Or I completely get what's going on.
I'm going to wait a few moments before I ask a question.
Sure,
But
Vince.
I got one cocked and locked, ready to go. If no one else has one. So I'll just wait like a minute or two.
Okay. No, it's all good. Here, if you want to ask, I mean, this is really Mitzi. Did you want to say something or ask something? I just saw you unmuted yourself. Mitzi. Oh, she's connecting to audio. Hold on 1 second. She unmuted herself, so I'm not sure. Oh, okay. Hold on. Mitzi, did you want to say something? I just saw that you were in and out of the audio. Otherwise, we'll go to Vince. Okay, great. Vince, go for it.
Yeah, briefly, what is the logic, or how would you define a story?
Let's see. There's no logic to it. It's what the separate self tells itself. Kind of period. It's what the separate self tells itself. It's a thing that creates meaning for the separate itself. So it's very easy to identify a story. Most of what we live in the separate state is a story. It could be very subtle or it could be huge. It's when you assign meaning to something, you create a story. That might not be the most satisfying answer, but that's what I've come up with. Not really an answer anyway. That's how I see it.
Okay.
Okay. All right, then. We're at the top of the hour. So you're going to take a big deep breath. Wait for a moment. I'll leave it open for a few minutes to see if people want to say anything to wrap up or any other questions or anything. Before we do that, I'm going to put in the chat my PayPal. If you feel like you got value from our work here today, then there's my PayPal to make a donation. And I'll be tomorrow. I'll be back on Inside Timer tomorrow morning at 10. Yeah. I think that's it for now. But anyone want to say anything before we
Thanks everybody for being on the call. I appreciated everybody's input and everybody being here.
Thank you, Casey. Appreciate you being here too. And even if people don't input, I mean, it doesn't, there's no competition. Sometimes the input is just to listen. Okay. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. I will see you next week for sure. And have a great week. And let me know if you need anything. All right. I'm going to make myself and say goodbye if you want to. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.